you have to be careful. I personally don't like, people going ahead, and if it is, and I'll tell you this, if it is that someone is helping you out to buy property, and you have to be very careful with this, for anyone who is placing someone on their deed for convenience purposes, make sure you have a contract with them, because what is happening is, so often someone has assisted you because you are not able to qualify for the mortgage by yourself at the time you acquired the property. So you probably got a friend or a family member to assist you in purchasing the property. What happens later on is that same friend and family member who knows that they did not put $1 in that property. Let's get real. At that time, you just could not qualify for the mortgage. You went to one of your friends or your family member asking for assistance. And this is where, when you can't stand on your own, how you will get often taken advantage of. So you're not able to qualify for the mortgage, and later on, what your friend does is, you want me to come off this deed, you have to run me some money. Some of them will even want 50% of your house. And this is where you have to be so careful, where you put people on your deed because you could not qualify for the mortgage. And here it is now, you want to be in a partition action. It takes 2 to 4 years sometime to prove that, in fact, this was all for convenience purposes and they don't have an ownership interest. It can get very serious for you, yeah? And some people some cases have held that just by the fact that the person went ahead and allowed you to qualify for the mortgage, that they should get an ownership interest. So you have to be very careful how you go ahead and you, in fact, get assistance to get someone to be on the deed. And a lot of people are not coming off the deed unless they are removed from the mortgage, and I don't blame them. It allows them to exercise some level of control. So Amarilla is asking, if property was purchased before marriage, is the other half still entitled? And I'll tell you, separate property, as long as it remains separate in a divorce, because you've had it before marriage, right? So it's deemed separate property. As long as it remains separate, then you're able to walk away with it. But the law is such that it's such a little devil at times, in terms of, if it is that you're using your marital funds, what's that? Your wages that you earned during the marriage to pay down on the mortgage. The courts are saying then that wages that you're used as marital funds, and basically a portion of that money, right, belong to your spouse because it's earnings that you acquired during the marriage. So when you use that monies to pay down on the principal, right, your spouse should get a credit. So this is where, if you've had property before the marriage, I would encourage you, rent it out and go look at a place, go look at a new place to live with your spouse, right? Because once you start using marital funds, now you're getting into murky waters, right? And it is now changing the whole title, the possibility that your spouse can get an interest. Another thing is, people will allow for their property to change when they get married by giving their spouse an interest in property that they had before the marriage, where they're allowing their spouse to make mortgage payments. I would not recommend that. Yeah. or you are allowing your spouse to make improvements and renovations using their funds to your house. So now you're actually giving an interest, and this is where valuations will come in to see how it is that that active engagement in renovating your property, how has that enhanced the value? Has it in fact even enhanced the value, right? So this is where property you had prior to your marriage, which you could have just walked away with, now the water has become murky as to whether or not this is in fact your separate property. Some people make I think it's a big mistake. If I had a property prior to marriage, there is no way, right? I'm thinking of adding a spouse to the deed. I would prefer for us to go ahead and accumulate our own. This is real property you had prior to your marriage, your own blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. Now you have some people are lucky and they got some fantastic people in their lives as their spouse. And that person truly understands the concept of for better or worse. And one of the things that is so traumatic is where if you went ahead and married someone and the worst comes early in your marriage, because when it is that you go ahead and you marry, you're really trying to take the betterment of it, and that's what you're really focusing on. No one in fact focuses on worse, but worse can occur. Yeah. And I have seen where some people are so lucky in getting some wonderful spouses in that during the marriage they fell ill, and not a lot of you will encounter this. And I think people see signs prior to their marriage, but you ignore it. And what in fact happens is after you get married, you think it's going to get better. It's not going to get better. And you have to be so careful who you take as a partner. Yeah. I find that we're in a world right now where people are in fact so focused on the material versus the human element. You have to be so careful who you bring around in your surroundings, because some people are just here to take, yeah, and they're not here to build with you, right? And some people see what you have prior to the marriage, and it is their intent that they're coming to see what they can get from you. So Amarilla says, hell no, no adding to deed. Anything, I suck salt and work long hours to purchase. I'm sorry. And Amarilla, I agree with you, you know, unless it is, I think if, as a spouse, if you want to build and get something, then let's go and buy something together that's our own. Yeah. Let's try and build together. I see no difficulty in that. I don't see it being hard where you should be of the mindset. That's just me, right? That you're looking to get your own, right? So, I mean, it is what it is. I think a text message